Donovan Jackson, Carson Hinsman, Seth McLaughlin, Tegra Shabola, Joshua Fryer. That was Ohio State's starting offensive line when it beat Penn State 20-13 to get its first ranked win of the season. I'm Stephen Means, that's Andrew Gillis, and that's Stefan Krajisnik. Do we think Ohio – it looked good. It looked decent. It didn't get in the way of what Ohio State wanted to do in the end. Do we think Ohio State's offensive line is good enough for Ohio State to accomplish its goals and win the Big Ten and win a national championship?
Based on that performance, yes. Now, I like to see it consistently and going forward against some other teams that they got. You know, you think about Michigan's defensive front, like that's going to be a test, right? And this Penn State front was definitely a test. But what we saw in this Penn State game was enough. You know why? Because this offense is clearly persistent on establishing the run. It's a big part of what they try to do, whether you agree with it or not. I know Stephen has his thoughts sometimes, but if this offense establishes the run, they are going to be successful. And I thought they did that today. And I thought they especially did that in the last 5 minutes and 31 seconds of the game, where they ran it down their throat over and over and over and over again to the tune of a win. That's why they won this game. They had 184 rushing yards, whatever it is. Steven's not holding his paper for this video. The rushing attack was impressive. Quinshon Judkins, I thought, looked really good. It wasn't great early. Like, you could tell they were trying to establish it, and it wasn't clearly, clicking for Quinshon. And then the second drive, he broke a couple, decent runs where you're like, all right, now the offense is moving. It opened some things up. I thought the running game opened up a few of the big passes that they had in that game. I thought the touchdown to Brandon Ennis that was all built off the run game, right? If they can do that, they're going to be successful. Were there some plays where Donovan Jackson got beat by Abdul Carter and it was some big third down sacks? I think there was 2 third down sacks for Carter. Yeah, of course. And that might not mean that Donovan Jackson is not a quality left tackle. That might just mean that Abdul Carter is a first-round pick. But whatever. You can nitpick and say what this line did correctly, incorrectly throughout the game. I thought the biggest thing is they were able to establish the run with this line, and if they can do that, they can win a national championship.
That's the result of a dude who hasn't played tackle since high school, and he's 22 years old now. It just takes some time, but also, yeah, Abdul Carter, really, really good guy. Good football player, too. Andrew, do you think this offensive line has put itself in a position and showed some things today that lets you know that Ohio State can do what it needs to do offensively to win a national title?
Yes, and my name is Andrew Gillis, and I was wrong. I said in my
Say it one more time.
My name is Andrew Gillis, and I was wrong. I was very
One
wrong.
more time. One more time.
So early in the week, now we do outrageous predictions obviously early in the week, and this is like our plus 5,000 parlay that we're like, hey, maybe let's get weird, let's get wild, let's pick it. I said Ohio State was going to have 1.9 yards per carry or fewer. That obviously includes sacks. I looked at it and I went, I don't know if they're going to get a push. You've got to be creative with this offense. You've got to find a way to get around it because I don't think you are going to get a push against this Penn State defensive front. And that is all they did on that last drive. They drove Penn State off the ball. Look, the makings of a great offensive line are when the other team knows exactly what you are going to do and you run the ball well. When they know you're going to run the ball and you are still running the ball. If there was 10 minutes left in the game, that drive would have been 9.5 minutes and they would have scored a touchdown, and that would have been how the game ended. Will Howard technically could have scored on that last play. It looked like he just slid down, which, somebody brought that up. I think Ryan Day laughed at it like, hey, Will Howard sliding. But, Will Howard could have scored on that drive, on that play. And he just took a seat and was like, we're going to win a game. And let's just get out of here. Ohio State's offensive line, we're not going to say it's solved permanently. We're not going to say, or at least I'm not, we're not going to say that, clearly that, they're not going to feel the loss of Josh Simmons because Donovan Jackson, let's hold. But they played very, very well today. And that needs to give Ohio State fans a lot of confidence about what is going to happen down the stretch because, again, this was a really, really tough environment. I thought Carson Hinsman, again, to the naked eye, played pretty well. Donovan Jackson, I thought, played pretty well. Again, there was a moment in that game where, Abdul Carter makes a play, and Steven said it in the press box. Abdul Carter might make that play if Josh Simmons is your left tackle because, again, it's college football now, so I guess you could say this. They get paid too. These guys also get paid too. These guys are also 4-star recruits too. They're good football players. They're allowed to make plays. It's going to happen. But what this offense did, I think Chip Kelly deserves a lot of credit for what he schemed up, knowing that there might be some problems on the offensive line. I think that's cannot go understated how well the game plan flowed, how good things looked. We said it in the press box. Chip Kelly was in his bag. I think when you pair those two things together, you have to feel pretty good where you're at right now on November 2nd about where this offensive line is at. And I'm Andrew Gillis, and I was wrong.
You were wrong again. Donovan Jackson was a 5-star recruit. That's neither here nor there in this situation. I don't know if it's actually – I don't know. Here's what I do know. I felt like Donovan Jackson today, him and Abdul Carter, reminded me so much of Paris Johnson in the Peach Bowl, where it was like, yeah, he gave up some sacks, but that's because that guy's good too. So it's fine. It's fine. It wasn't for a guy who has not played offensive tackle since he was 17 years old, and 2 weeks ago was like, oh, well, now I have to play it because not only did our starting left tackle get hurt, our backup got hurt. So here we are. I've been playing left guard for 3 years here as a starter, and now I'm on the edge. And he was talking about some of that. It's like, hey, you're out in space now. Instead of guys who are the same size as you, it's a guy who's 50 pounds lighter than you. And instead of you going into the guy and being aggressive, it's a guy trying to run through your face. So kudos to Donovan Jackson, man. He's playing out of position because he has to. And so I thought he did a solid job. I thought it was interesting what Ryan Day said when I asked him about Carson Hinsman and why they went there. He said they chose experience. Carson Hinsman's played in this game before. He was the starting center a year ago. Obviously, he lost his job going into the Cotton Bowl, and then they brought in Seth McLaughlin. He's just kind of been in the background, a depth piece, and it was to a point where you thought maybe Luke Montgomery had passed him, Tegra Shabola had passed him, Austin Sierraveld started 2 games at left guard for Ohio State early in the season. So it's just like, where does that leave Carson Hinsman? They go with him today as experience. But the answer didn't feel like, we're going with him long term. We went with him in the Penn State game because of the environment and what this was, and you needed experience. Maybe we see Austin Sierraveld out there. Maybe we see Luke Montgomery out there. Who knows? But I do feel like the offensive line, in terms of who the actual starting 5 are, based off his answer, are still a work in progress. But my thing today is I just saw a reason for Ohio State fans to have some hope that they can execute because, as you said, Andrew, the combination of, man, they were just dragging him down the field that last 5 minutes, but also Chip Kelly and Ryan Day clearly schemed things up to shade away any deficiencies while making sure to maximize what makes this team good.
Yeah, I thought what's interesting I'm interested to hear your thoughts, Stephen. You know, when they talk about Carson Hinsman, obviously starting him because of experience, that made a lot of sense. Does the Purdue game, do we see maybe rotation left guard? Do you see Luke Montgomery maybe get some reps? So you say, okay, like Carson was the answer against Penn State. Let's see what Luke has when he's got, kind of a full body of work. Because he came into that Nebraska he got thrown into that game. Do you say, all right, you can against Purdue, I think. I mean, Purdue just lost at home to Northwestern, so I think you can risk it a little bit to put Luke Montgomery for some, valuable snaps at left guard and see, okay, going into, I believe Northwestern is a game after Purdue, going into Northwestern, like, what does Luke Montgomery look like? Because you've seen what Carson Hinsman looks like.
I think it's going to be an interesting week of practice where they're going to – maybe you put Austin back over there as well. Yep. We've seen it in other games where Austin's come in for like 10 snaps for Tegra Shabola. I think it's worth asking Ryan Day that on Tuesday, the idea of how they want to handle things, because you do have 2 games where you can tweak it, but especially the Purdue game because it's at home. Right. I'm not going to be shocked if we see some level of what we've seen at right guard between Tegra Shabola and Austin Sierraveld while they're figuring this stuff out. But I do think they need to figure it out next week. I know Northwestern is the following week, but that is a road game and an interesting environment. So you want to have things solidified going into that game because then your stretch run hits with Indiana, Michigan, and potentially a Big Ten championship game. But I wouldn't be shocked at that, Stefan, if we do see a rotation there. After let's just get through this game with guys that we know have been here before, and then we can worry about maximizing the following week. But I do think, again, hope. You are looking to come out of this game still alive and have some hope. And I think the offensive line is still alive and it has some hope, and so is the rest of this roster after a 20-13 win over Penn State. We'll continue to talk about this on Buckeye Talk, so go listen to that wherever you listen to podcasts and get the text 614-350-3315 for Stefan, for Andrew, for Steven. We're going home. See ya.